All right, so we're going to talk about something called impact factor today. And you'll see that in the two writing assignments that we have for the course, that I am requiring, okay, that you pick a paper in a journal that has an impact factor greater than or equal to 3, okay? And so what does that mean? The impact factor is the average number of citations that a paper published in that journal has. Okay, so the way to think about this is, let's say a paper has a million citations. Let's say a journal has 1,000 different papers that have been published in it, right? And out of all those 1,000 papers, there are 10,000 uh, citations. Okay, that would mean that the impact factor of the journal is 10. Okay, so the impact factor tends to increase over time because there's more and more citations, but there's also more and more papers. So it can decrease actually over time. And so, it kind of tells you something about the quality of the journal. It's not a perfect metric, but it is a metric. So the easiest way to look this up is just go impact factor of, let's do Journal of the American Chemical Society. Okay. And you can see that has an impact factor of 14.6. So if you choose a journal from this paper, from a paper from this journal, that's fine for this assignment, right? These assignments, it's greater than 3, greater than or equal to 3, I'm happy. You can try like inorganic chemistry. That's a journal, okay? Impact factor 4.85. So why would that one would be fine too, greater than or equal to 3? Why would the journal Inorganic Chemistry, why would you expect that to have be less impactful than Journal of the American Chemical Society? The reason is because inorganic chemistry is really only read by inorganic chemists, right? And so it only contains inorganic chemistry. And so it's pretty narrow. So generally, the narrower your scope of a journal is, the lower its impact factor. Okay, so um, that will, it means, people don't tend to value this research as much, at least the general scientific population. Doesn't mean there isn't great science in those journals. It's just that it doesn't have as much exposure being into those journals, okay? Journal of American Chemical Society, though, on the other hand, has a much higher impact factor, okay? Why is that? Because now all of chemistry is embodied in JAX, as it's known, right? And so organic chemists are going to be reading this journal regularly, as well as inorganic and physical chemists, et cetera, environmental chemists. And so you might be an organic chemist, but you might come across an interesting PChem article, and then you might end up citing that in your work, right? But if you're an organic chemist, you're not probably routinely keeping up with Journal of Physical Chemistry, right? You can go even more broad, right? Like science, that's a very broad journal where any sort of science can get published. It's a very prestigious American journal as a result. It has an impact factor of, it says here, almost 42. So that means on average, each article is cited by 42 other articles. Okay, so that's very high. But in this type of journal, you can find a lot of chemistry articles, biology, psychology, geology, history of science. Anything that has to do with science can go in this journal. So it has to be really impactful work in order to be published in the journal Science. Let's look at some lists of impact factors, just for kicks. Best way to do this is go to Google Scholar and click over here and hit metrics. Okay, and if you go in metrics, it's going to tell you the top publications in terms of impact factor. It uses a slightly different different metric here, but it's a similar idea. This is called the H5 index, and it tells you what this is. H5 index is the H index for articles published in the last 5 complete years. It is the largest number H such that H articles published in 2015 through 2019 have at least H citations each. So what does this mean? Nature is coming up at number 1. It means in the journal Nature, from articles published 2015 to 2019, there are 376 papers in Nature from 2015 to 2019 that have been cited at least 376 times. Okay, 376 papers in the last 5 years, 5 complete years, that have been cited at least 376 times. You can see this median is just of those 376 papers, what's the median number of times it's been cited. These are sorted in terms of the H5 index. It's a similar thing to impact factor. It's a similar gauge, but I want you to use impact factor for the purposes of figuring out the homework assignment if you have an appropriate journal. Has to have an impact factor greater than or equal to 3. Most journals will fall in that category. I just don't want you picking some really obscure journal that might have kind of shady science that you can't trust, okay? That's why I set this threshold at 3 or higher. Nature is the highest. This is the British version of Science. Okay, interestingly, Science is number 3, and then you have New England Journal of Medicine, very prestigious medicine journal. Medicine research gets cited a lot. There's a lot of medicine research, so it's a little bit of an outlier here. And then there's some other ones here. You can see like Cell, that's a very common bio one. Chemical Reviews, okay. Journal American Chemical Society. Chemical Reviews doesn't have original research. It just has what are called review papers. I'll go over that in the next video, but review papers, very briefly, aren't original research. They're just summaries of existing research. But that's very useful for people to read, and so those review articles tend to be cited a lot. And then the cool thing is you can also go categories. So we're going to be in chemical and material science. So you can see, yeah, advanced materials is probably more of a material science one. That is the highest H5 index. This is a review journal. JAX is the highest. Right below is Angewandte Chemie. That is a German journal published in both English and German. And it's right there. Energy and environmental science, very good for energy science, hot topic these days. So it's very high. Nanotechnology, you can see that's an American nanotechnology journal. So you get the idea. All right, so impact factor, you need impact factor greater than or equal to 3 to be following the rules for the writing homework assignments. See you in the next video about the types of journal articles that there